Billionaire CEO needs a date to his ex's wedding. He picks a young waitress and can't stop staring. The world knew him as Nathan Cross, tech tycoon, Forbes regular, billionaire bachelor. But on the morning he received an ivory envelope sealed in gold wax, everything changed. Because nothing wounds deeper than being invited to the wedding of the woman who once promised forever to someone else. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. Nathan stared at the card in silence, the words Clarissa and Emmanuel practically glowing off the page. The ceremony was in 2 weeks, in Italy of all places. A destination wedding for the elite, designed to be remembered and flaunted. And Clarissa knew exactly what she was doing. It wasn't just an invite. It was a statement. Look how well I've done without you. He tossed the envelope onto his desk. His assistant, Vanessa, said nothing, but her eyes flickered with concern. Nathan got up, jacket in hand. Cancel my meetings, he muttered. All of them. Are you okay? She asked quietly. I need air. That's how Nathan Cross found himself, a billionaire in a hoodie, stepping into a rundown corner diner he hadn't been to in years. No boardrooms. No cameras. Just coffee. That's where he met her. Sophie James was balancing 3 plates on one arm, refilling a cup with the other, and smiling like her whole world didn't revolve around tips and double shifts. Her apron was stained, her hair loosely tied back, and her sneakers had definitely seen better days. But there was something in her presence that made Nathan pause. She walked over to his booth. Haven't seen you here before, she said. What's your name? He blinked. Nobody asked him that without knowing exactly who he was. Nathan, he replied simply. You look like you've seen a ghost, Nathan. Need coffee or therapy, she joked. Coffee, he replied, for once unsure how to respond. Sophie poured it carefully, then slid into the booth across from him without asking. Rough day. He hesitated, then smirked. Let's just say I've been invited to a disaster, dressed as a wedding. Sophie raised an eyebrow. Ex. Fiancé. Ouch. There was a quiet beat between them. For reasons he couldn't explain, Nathan found himself talking more. About betrayal. About timing. About the strange emptiness of success. Sophie listened, not like someone who wanted something from him, but like someone who simply cared. She didn't interrupt. She didn't flatter. She just nodded and said, You don't need to prove anything to her. But if you are going, you better look good doing it. Nathan tilted his head. Go with me. She laughed. Wait, what? I'm serious, he said. Be my date. You want a waitress from 7th and Main to be your +1 to a high society wedding? Exactly. You're insane. Maybe. She looked at him like she was trying to see through the act. You don't know anything about me. I know you didn't blink when I said I was hurting. That's enough for me. Sophie stood up. Let's pretend for a second you're not messing with me. What's in it for me? A break. An adventure. And he paused. A dress that costs more than your monthly rent. She shook her head with a small grin. You're not charming. You're dangerous. And yet, you're still talking to me. There was a long pause before she said, Let me think about it. Nathan left his number scrawled on a napkin and walked out into the cold afternoon air, feeling something strange stir in his chest. It wasn't about Clarissa anymore. It was about Sophie. He returned the next morning. She was there. Same apron. Same coffee pot. But her expression was different. Curious, uncertain, intrigued. You really meant it? She asked. Yes. And you don't care that I'm just a waitress? I think that's what I like most. Later that day, the arrangements began. Stylists, etiquette lessons, a crash course in Italian high society, all tailored for Sophie. She wasn't a project. She was a discovery. And Nathan couldn't stop watching her. By the end of the week, she wasn't transformed into someone new, just seen for the first time. And in Nathan's world, where everything came with a price tag that made her priceless, Sophie had never been on a private jet. She'd never been styled by professionals or had 6 different forks laid out for one meal. But standing in front of a mirror in a sunlit penthouse suite, wearing a designer dress tailored to her every curve, she hardly recognized the girl staring back. The waitress from 7th and Main was gone, at least on the outside. It all began the moment she said yes. Nathan didn't waste a second. That same afternoon, a black town car picked her up after her shift. Don't worry about your job, he said, as she slid into the back seat. I've arranged the time off. Paid. Sophie looked at him, startled. You bought me time? He shrugged. Just borrowing it. What followed felt like a whirlwind. A personal stylist named Dario measured her from head to toe, clicking his tongue in dramatic frustration at her wardrobe. This girl has bones, he told Nathan. We just need to dress them like royalty. Sophie laughed through fittings, skincare treatments, and etiquette sessions where she had to balance books on her head. Through it all, Nathan watched. Not because he needed her to change, but because watching her adapt, falter, and then rise again was magnetic. The more polished she looked, the more he saw her core remain untouched. She still made jokes with the drivers, offered leftovers to hotel staff, and insisted on carrying her own bag. Even when it was Prada. By the time their departure day came, Nathan stood outside his private jet waiting. When Sophie stepped out of the car, dressed in a champagne-colored coat and oversized sunglasses, his breath caught. Not because she looked different, but because she looked like someone who belonged, even though she didn't pretend to. As they boarded the plane, Sophie took in the luxury with wide eyes. Cream leather seats, a minibar, a ceiling lit like a night sky. I thought stars belonged outside, she whispered, trailing her fingers along the ceiling. They do, Nathan said. But sometimes it's nice to bring them in when the world outside feels too cold. They took their seats, facing each other. The engine roared to life. Sophie looked across at him. Why are you really doing this? She asked. Is it revenge? A game. Nathan looked out the window for a long beat before replying. It was, at first. I'll admit that. Clarissa left me because she said I was emotionally vacant. She called me a robot in a three-piece suit. I wanted to show her I could feel something. Anything. And now. He turned back to her. Now. I'm trying to remember who I was before I let the world convince me I had to be bulletproof. Sophie nodded slowly. Funny. I've spent most of my life building armor. You've spent yours trying to take it off. They shared a soft smile. Then silence. Halfway through the flight, Nathan pulled out an old Polaroid from his wallet. This was me, he said, handing it over. The picture showed a young boy with messy hair, covered in grease, working on a bike. Sophie smiled. You look happy. I was, he said quietly. Back when I thought building things was more important than owning them. She looked at him, not as a billionaire, not as her temporary date, but as a man who'd lost something he wasn't sure how to get back. You're still in there, she said gently. I see him. The words hit deeper than he expected. As the sun dipped beyond the clouds, Sophie curled up near the window, watching the sky fade into twilight. Nathan sat across from her, watching her face bathed in the soft glow of cabin light. She was unpolished perfection, real, unpredictable, and honest in a way no one in his world dared to be. And for the first time in years, Nathan didn't feel alone at 40,000 feet. As they prepared to land in Italy, he leaned toward her. Thank you, he said. For what? For saying yes. For not changing. For being here. Sophie smiled, brushing hair from her face. You're welcome. Just don't make me wear heels every day. The jet descended into the lights of Lake Como, where 100 socialites were waiting to see who Nathan Cross would bring to the altar of his heartbreak. But what they didn't know was that Nathan wasn't coming to impress anyone. He was coming with someone who made him forget why he ever felt the need to. The doors to Villa Bella Vista opened wide, and silence fell like a curtain. In walked Nathan Cross, powerful, poised, untouchable. But it wasn't him they stared at. It was her. Sophie James. A girl no one recognized, in a dress that looked like it belonged in a museum, walking with quiet confidence on the arm of the man everyone wanted to impress. In that moment, the ex was forgotten. All anyone could say was, who is she? Lake Como shimmered behind them, a fairy tale backdrop to what was supposed to be Clarissa's perfect day. Guests turned in their chairs. The photographers shifted lenses. The air tensed with curiosity. Nathan leaned towards Sophie and whispered, just breathe. You're already the most interesting person here. Sophie clutched her clutch tighter. You really weren't exaggerating about the stairs. He smiled. Let them. You've earned it. They made their way across the garden terrace toward the cocktail area. Billionaires, royalty, and global influencers surrounded them, nodding politely but clearly buzzing with questions. No one had ever seen Nathan Cross with someone so unfamiliar. Clarissa Blake stood across the lawn, radiant in her bridal gown, gripping a champagne glass so tightly her knuckles were white. Her groom, Emmanuel, a well-known diplomat, whispered something in her ear. She didn't respond. Her eyes were fixed on Nathan. When their eyes met, Nathan simply nodded, the kind of nod that said, you don't get to break me anymore. Clarissa raised her glass in mock toast, but her gaze flickered to Sophie, scanning her from head to heel. Young, fresh, beautiful, and not from their world. The implication was loud, even without words. You replaced me. With that? But Sophie stood her ground. She smiled gently, her gaze calm. She didn't flinch. Not even when a fashion columnist whispered behind her, "Is she an actress? A European princess?" Nathan chuckled quietly. "You're causing a scandal without trying." "I haven't even had a drink yet," Sophie replied. Then came the dance. A string quartet played as couples took to the floor under a canopy of lights. Nathan extended a hand to Sophie. "May I?" "I'm a terrible dancer," she warned. "I'll lead," he said, and pulled her in. They moved slowly, gracefully. And around them, whispers only grew. Sophie rested her hand on his shoulder, staring up into his eyes. "Is this still part of the show?" He shook his head. "This is just me, wanting to be close to you." Before Sophie could respond, Clarissa approached. "Nathan," she said with a cool smile. "I didn't think you'd come." He released Sophie gently, his demeanor calm but firm. "I didn't come for you." Clarissa's eyes darted to Sophie. "Clearly. And who might this be?" "Sophie James," Sophie said before Nathan could answer. "Pleasure to meet you." Clarissa tilted her head. "Waitress, right? I recognize you now. You served me once at that downtown cafe." Sophie smiled. "That's right. And you didn't tip." Clarissa blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Nathan stepped in. "She's my date, and the most intelligent woman I've met in years." Clarissa gave a tight smile. "Be careful, Nathan. When you invite someone from a different world, they tend to break things." He leaned closer, his voice low. "That's exactly why I brought her." Clarissa's mask slipped for just a second, just long enough for Sophie to see the bitterness behind the pearls. But Clarissa composed herself and walked away, her gown sweeping dramatically behind her. Sophie exhaled. "Well, she's fun." Nathan laughed for the first time that evening. "You were brilliant." "I didn't punch her," Sophie shrugged. "That's something." As the night went on, Sophie mingled. Not with the CEOs or celebrities, but with the caterers, the musicians, the servers. She offered to help clear a tray when one stumbled. She played peekaboo with the flower girl. And every time Nathan looked up, she was smiling. Later, a reporter cornered him near the bar. "Mr. Cross, who is the young woman with you?" Nathan paused. "Someone very important." "Is she your girlfriend?" "No," he said. "She's the woman who reminded me what it's like to be seen." It wasn't scripted. It wasn't strategy. It was truth. And in the shadow of the woman who once shattered his heart, Nathan realized he wasn't broken anymore. The music had faded. The laughter had grown distant. But up on the moonlit balcony of the villa, Nathan Cross and Sophie James stood alone, two people from different worlds, wrapped in silence deeper than words. It was supposed to be an act, just one night. But the look in his eyes said otherwise. And Sophie felt it too. Something real, dangerous, and entirely unscripted. Below them, the reception continued. Clarissa danced with her new husband, the crowd oblivious to the tension still clinging to the air. But up here, under a sky scattered with stars, Sophie turned to Nathan. "You never told me," she said softly. "Why you really brought me." Nathan leaned against the railing, loosening his tie. "I thought I had something to prove. That I needed to show Clarissa I'd moved on. That I was unshaken. But somewhere between the jet and that dance floor, I forgot about her." Sophie looked at him, uncertain. "What did you remember instead?" Nathan's eyes met hers. "You." For a long moment, neither of them said anything. The breeze ruffled her hair. He reached out gently, brushing a strand from her face. "I brought you to make a point," he said. "But you've become the point." Sophie lowered her gaze. "Nathan, this isn't real. We're not real. I go back to a tiny apartment after this. I've got 2 part-time jobs and a sister with night terrors. You have an empire." He stepped closer. "Empires crumble. But the right people, if you're lucky, they stay." Sophie smiled faintly, eyes glinting with both wonder and worry. "You don't know me. I know you listen. I know you speak without trying to impress. I know you'd rather laugh with the waitstaff than sip wine with billionaires. I know you read people better than I read contracts. And I know when you're not around, I start looking for you." Her breath caught in her throat. "Nathan," he took her hand gently. "You saw me before anyone else did." Not Nathan Cross the CEO. Just Nathan. That's more than Clarissa ever did. more than most people ever try to. The raw honesty between them pressed in like gravity. Sophie swallowed hard. You don't need saving. No, he said, but I needed reminding of who I used to be. And you did that. She looked down at their hands, fingers intertwined. I don't know if I belong in your world. Nathan smiled. Maybe I don't belong in mine either. That made her laugh, genuine and unguarded. The tension eased, but the truth lingered. I'm scared, Sophie admitted quietly. So am I, he replied. There was a long pause. And then, for the first time, Nathan leaned in, not to dominate the moment, not to seduce, but simply to be closer. His forehead touched hers. No kiss. Just closeness. I'm not asking you for forever, he said. Just one more night. Just don't walk away yet. Sophie's eyes fluttered shut. Okay. Later, they sat together in two old iron chairs, legs stretched, watching the lake glimmer under the stars. Nathan told her about his childhood, the single mother who worked night shifts, the first computer he built from junk parts, the loneliness of building wealth faster than relationships could catch up. Sophie talked about her parents' accident, raising her little sister, falling behind in college because rent always came first. No pretense, no headlines, just two people, stripped of the masks their lives had demanded. By dawn, their hands were still locked together. Sleep never came, but neither of them needed it. They didn't make promises, but something had shifted, irrevocably. And in that quiet, infinite moment between night and morning, Sophie realized she wasn't just part of Nathan's plan. She might be part of his future. 3 days ago, Sophie James was taking breakfast orders and wiping ketchup off vinyl booths. Now, she stood in front of her cracked bathroom mirror, removing diamond earrings she didn't own, hanging up a dress she never thought she'd wear again, and wondering if the entire weekend had been just a dream. But that was before the limousine showed up outside her apartment, and before the world learned what Nathan Cross did next. Sophie had returned quietly. She didn't expect a call, or a letter, or flowers. In fact, she told herself it was better that way, better to go back to real life, where tips paid for textbooks and dreams were on hold until further notice. Nathan had said beautiful things, honest things, but his world wasn't built for people like her. And she wasn't about to chase fairy tales. But then she turned on the TV. A live press conference was underway. There, at a polished podium, stood Nathan Cross in a charcoal suit, his tie slightly crooked, the only thing about him that looked unplanned. He was launching a new initiative, a billion-dollar foundation to support first-generation college students and working-class families. A major announcement. Cameras clicked. Reporters leaned in. But it was what came next that stunned everyone. I've spent years building things, he said into the mic, but somewhere along the way, I forgot who I was building them for. Last week, I met someone who reminded me what really matters. Not numbers, not market shares. People, real people. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a photograph. The crowd murmured. It was a candid shot of Sophie, taken at the wedding, laughing with the flower girl. Honest, unfiltered. This woman didn't ask for attention. She didn't expect praise. She walked into a world that wasn't hers and made it better just by being herself. I owe her more than thanks. I owe her the truth. He paused, then looked directly at the camera. Sophie James, if you're watching, I'd like to take you on a second date. No jet, no tuxedos, just us. And this time, not to prove a point, just because I can't stop thinking about you. Sophie nearly dropped the remote. Outside her building, a sleek black car pulled up. Her name was on the sign in the window. And inside the envelope handed to her by the driver was a single note. He meant every word. The gala that evening was supposed to be a closed-door event for press and donors. But when Sophie arrived, nervous, wearing the same champagne dress, she was ushered straight to the stage. Nathan was already waiting. When she stepped into the spotlight, applause filled the room. But Nathan didn't look at the crowd. He looked only at her. She stopped just short of the podium, unsure. You really did all this? I just gave it a name, he said. You gave it meaning. And what exactly is this second date? He smiled. A walk through Central Park. Street food. No paparazzi. Just real life. And after that, we figure it out. Together. Sophie's voice lowered. You're really not afraid of what people will say? He stepped forward, gently taking her hand. I used to care about headlines. But now, I care about heartbeats. In front of the flashing lights, Nathan didn't kiss her. He didn't need to. He held her hand, turned to the crowd, and said, Everyone deserves to be seen. This is Sophie James. She's not a billionaire. She's not a model. But she's the reason I remember who I am. And just like that, a love story that had begun on impulse, built in borrowed time, and shaped by honesty, became the story that redefined a man the world thought they knew. Because the billionaire didn't just take a waitress to a wedding. He found the woman who changed his life. In a world obsessed with status, sometimes the most valuable thing you can offer is something money can't buy: authenticity. Sophie James didn't walk into Nathan Cross's life with a title or a fortune. She walked in with truth. And that truth, in the end, did what billion-dollar mergers couldn't: it healed. Because real love doesn't need a spotlight, it just needs to be seen. If you enjoyed this heartfelt story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more dramatic, uplifting narratives just like this. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from our global family. What did you think of Nathan and Sophie's story? Could love like this happen in real life? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss another story full of unexpected twists, redemption, and emotion. This was Nathan Cross and Sophie.